Kia ora, Etefano. Welcome to No Boundaries. I am Laura McGoldrick. It is so great to be back with you talking about cricket. I have got plenty. This is a huge show. There is so much on. We've got some massive news about Sky Sports coverage of the Black Caps in the subcontinent. I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. First, we have some huge news, and I'm going to start with Mitchell McClenaghan, who is alongside me. Hello, Mitch. Good to have you back. And the fabulous Mike Hesson coming in from Dunedin. How are you, Hess?
Very good, thank you, Laura. Hey, Mitch.
As the current coach of a team, and actually, Mitch, I saw congratulations to you with Auckland. I've got lots of I'm surrounded by coaches now, so this is the perfect way to start this show. Brendon McCullum has now been announced as the white ball coach. Bit of a no-brainer for the ECB if you think of it, but boy oh boy, they have a heck of a schedule, and he has a heck of a lot of tournaments that are coming up with the Champions Trophy. Not to mention you've got the Ashes, you've got then the T20 World Cup, then followed on by the ODI World Cup. It's a lot of pressure over a 3-year period for Brendon McCullum. Can you think of a man better suited to the task, though, Mitchell McClenaghan?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think he's going to be well equipped to be able to take this team forward. I think it's a different expectation from what was there when he took over the Test side. It was a struggling Test side when he took over the reins for England. And I think this white ball side that England have got, rightfully so, go into every T20 World Cup or One Day World Cup as probably one of the favourites in every competition, because such is the talent that they've got in their 15-man squad that they take away. But also they've got an incredible amount of talent coming through in the white ball format of the game now domestically. So it's a different challenge. It's a challenge of managing a few bigger personalities, which I think he's very well equipped of being able to manage and steering them in the right direction and trying to achieve winning another World Cup, T20 or One Day World Cup. He
certainly has reinvigorated that Test team here. So you've worked a lot with Brendon. You know him very well. You're great mates. You know, this is a huge... So he has a family, and when you go from playing and the schedule and workload he had then to now going into coaching, and now you're picking up even more, and there is a lot of pressure. Do you think, I mean, we know he can handle it, but talk us through how he will go about handling it, and those bigger personalities, as Mitch alluded to, and the fact that there are some big key points that they'll be working toward.
Yeah, Laura, I think the main thing was the easing of the fixture list, and I think that was an interesting term at the top of the press release. And I think, you know, from 2025, the amount of bilateral cricket that England will play, there's actually some better gaps there. So that would have allowed the likes of Rob Key and Brendon to sit down and go, hey, we can actually manage this. And I think he's the perfect fit. And I think he's the perfect fit because Jos Buttler is quite conservative as a leader. And I think that they haven't had a real amount of clarity around how they want to play their white ball game. And Mitch is spot on around the talent, but the last 2.5 years, they certainly haven't got close to maximising that at the last 2 World Cups. And they've looked a bit confused and a little bit conservative at times, which Brendon certainly won't allow the game to just drift. And I think Jos will benefit from somebody who's going to just keep promoting that idea of if you're on top, you've got to continue to attack. So I think it'll be a nice combination between the two.
When you say that confusion, Hess, do you think that's a lot around the whole Bazball thing in tests, and the one-day players and the T20 players are looking at that going, should we do that? Is that what we should do? And do you think that this will provide, I suppose, just the allowing them to go ahead and do their skills very well, which is Baz's big thing. You just go out there, express yourself, be the player you want to be. Do you think that is the key to the unlocking of how good a team this shorter format England team could be?
Well, I think it's more a mindset thing. Like if you think back to the last World Cup, T20 World Cup, England were dominating a couple of those games against great sides, and then they drifted. Against India, they drifted, you know, for 4 or 5, 6 overs, allowed them back into the game, and then they took over and won at the last minute. And those sort of situations just won't occur. You know, Brendon will be very much along the lines of, mate, if you're on top, don't worry about who's going to bowl the last couple of overs. Actually grab the game by the scruff of the neck and dominate what's right in front of you now. And that's, I think, the thing that England have struggled with the last couple of years. And as I said, I think, you know, Jos is a fine leader. He's an aggressive batsman, but he is conservative in terms of how he uses his bowlers. From a batting point of view, often, you know, other than Phil Salt, often through the middle there, they looked like they were a little bit confused. You know, Brendon will just provide real clarity. Hey, this is your role to go out and attack this phase of the game and just be really clear around what your specific role is.
All right, well, let's find out what some of the Black Caps think about this new change for England. So exciting news in world cricket today with Brendon McCullum now being the coach of both the Test and the white ball format. You're a good mate of his. You know all too well what he can do, especially in the shorter format. How well do you think he's going to be suited to that group?
Yeah, a little bit surprised, but I think that they're extremely lucky to have, I guess, got him in both formats. We've seen what he did with us as a side when he was captain, and what he's done with the Test side in England, and I'm sure he'll give it a good crack with the white ball side as well. So yeah, I'm sure, yeah, just extremely lucky, I guess, England to have someone like Brendon to be able to tap into both white ball and red ball sides.
Why were you surprised?
Yeah, I don't know. I think looking at the Test, having the Test job, it looked like yeah, a good balance between not too busy and enjoying a bit of cricket, and now I guess taking over both, it obviously a bit more workload on his plate. Speaking
of change, there has been a fair bit of change since we last caught up with the Blackcaps and their contracts and what's gone on there. Mitchell McClenaghan, look, I'd say you're actually one of the ones who sort of paved the way for players to even consider doing this here in Aotearoa. So we've had some huge changes with players turning down contracts, some new boys coming in with Nathan Smith and Josh Clarkson being given the last 2 contracts because Devon Conway and Finn Allen turned theirs down. What do you make of the whole situation and how New Zealand are or need to be adapting to the current climate of world cricket?
Well, don't just put it on me. Hess is the coach who let me go. So he's just adds to blame for that. So, look, it's an interesting time, isn't it? I think there needs to be a few things that need to change at many levels. And one for mine is introducing a strong domestic T20 competition. It's got to be franchised. I think the decisions to leave New Zealand during the New Zealand summer become a lot more difficult when you've got a higher paying competition in New Zealand with good players and good opportunities to extend your network for other competitions during our winter. So I think that needs to happen first and foremost, and it needs to be looked at very quickly and get that off the ground. But from a playing perspective, with guys going and playing in these competitions, I think it's also great because they're going to play a lot more cricket than they potentially would do if they stayed here in New Zealand. They might play 2-3 times the amount of games in a short period of time and become better players. And it does allow players like Nathan Smith to jump onto that list. Look, he had a phenomenal county stint just recently, and got the opportunity to talk to a few players like Alex Hales, who played against him in the county cricket just recently, and said that he's bowling quick. He's bowling a lot quicker than we've seen in previous years. He's touching early 140s. He's moving the ball both ways, and we know how good he is with the bat as well. So I think he fits a really nice hole that's been left in that New Zealand side since Colin de Grandhomme retired, particularly in the Test format and probably the one-day format. I think he's got the skills to come into international cricket and perform straight away.
Well, I don't want to, for those of you who have been long-time watchers of No Boundaries, Mike Hesson called that Nathan Smith one a long time ago, said get him in there. So, Hess, well done to you. How do you think New Zealand cricket is handling this situation? Because it sort of started to loosely happen a little bit when you were in the role of head coach of the Blackcaps, but it feels like from an outsider looking in that the rules change for different players. You know, you've got your Trent Bolts, and then Kane happens, and then there's the casual contract, and then no more casual contract, but no, actually we'll put Devon in that bracket, but not Finn. So how do you think they're handling it? It feels to me like, from an outsider, like I say, looking at it, there needs to be some just rules, and those are the rules for every player.
I think it can create division. I think when you have situations where some players are allowed things and not others, and no one really knows where that line is, you know, it's all very well thinking, look, we'll look at every situation independently. But if I'm Finn Allen and I'm 24, 25, and I'm incredibly well wanted around the world in domestic and he wants a casual contract because he wants to still keep that link with New Zealand cricket, obviously his training, you know, physio support, all of those things, I would think he is the perfect guy that you want to offer a casual contract to, because you want to keep him, you want to keep control of where he's at and how he's going, because he's got his best cricket in front of him. So whereas to say to Devon, yes, you have one and Finn doesn't, you know, that creates division. And I just don't think that's necessary. There's a lot of confusion out there, certainly more so in the last couple of years. The landscape has changed, and it's going to continue to change. You know, even Tim Southee, I mean, to be fair, he'd be very well sought after on the T20 circuit at the moment. You know, his T20 record in recent times has been exceptional. You look at how he operated in the 100. So, you know, there's going to be some real challenges over the next, well, certainly before the next contract period. But it does open the doors, doesn't it, for the likes of Nathan Smith, who thoroughly deserves that contract. Josh Clarkson, who performs in a role that's, you know, very difficult in that finisher's role and highly sought after, so he gets an opportunity to spend more time in his game. So, it creates opportunities, but New Zealand cricket have certainly got to look at a whole heap of different aspects of that pathway now.
Certainly do. Hess mentioned the current Test captain. Well, Kane had to give up the captaincy to go away and have that casual contract to go and play in the T20 leagues around the world. Where does loyalty sit? We mentioned Finn. Now, he hasn't been long in the New Zealand cricket game just yet. Internationally, he's only had a couple of seasons, and Hess is right, he's got a big future ahead of him. But where do the likes of loyalty sit, do you think, for New Zealand cricket, and how much should that play a role in the decisions around these different rules that New Zealand cricket are making?
Really good question, and I think I'll follow on from what Hess said. I think loyalty comes from an expression of love to the player from the board and the organisation, and I think a lot of white ball players over a long period of time have had very little love from New Zealand cricket. It's all been about Test cricket being the pinnacle. They kind of, like Hess alluded to, get treated slightly differently than white ball cricketers do. So when it comes down to seeing a contract in front of your face, and then you're not getting some love from your board or your organisation, or trying to find ways to help you get better as a player and work with you, then it becomes very difficult to have loyalty. So, and it's probably been exacerbated by exactly what Hess has said, that there's no casual contract for Finn Allen. You should be trying to keep him in the system and find a way to make it work. Whether or not this year's calendar would have lined up nicely for him to be available as much as they would have liked, there still should have been an olive branch sent out there to Finn Allen and found a way to make that work, because at the end of the day, if he has a good couple of comps, he's not going to come back. We're going to lose him like we lost Colin Munro, who potentially could have got us to winning a couple of T20 World Cups. We're going to have exactly that scenario again.
Yes, New Zealand cricket have a huge challenge on their hands, but the BLACKCAPS have a huge challenge on their hands. Now, we have plenty of cricket coming up for you on Sky Sport. I said earlier we have some big news about their subcontinent tours. Well, we've got the White Ferns Tour of Australia, we've got the Women's T20 World Cup, which kicks off next month, as well as the BLACKCAPS Tour of Sri Lanka and India. So there is plenty of cricket coming up for you as well. And don't forget the Border Gavaskar Trophy, which is like the Ashes, and I cannot wait to get my laughing gear around that. Let's talk about the BLACKCAPS, though. They start their tour with a one-off test against Afghanistan in India. Now, that is an interesting challenge in itself. Afghanistan have not played a lot of test cricket, but New Zealand going over there, how do you think they're going to fare in those Indian conditions? I'll start with you, Mitch.
Oh, look, it's been, I think, we're ticking over probably 77 days since we last played some cricket. And I know there was a lot of chat about that before we went into the T20 World Cup and how we would fare. And we saw how we went against Afghanistan in the first game there. So it kind of brings up a few scars for New Zealand cricket fans. Opens a few wounds, doesn't it? Look, I think we'll be fine. I think the Afghanistan Test playing side doesn't get as many opportunities to play as the white ball team. And we know that cricketers at Test level, it's very difficult to win Test matches. So yes, the conditions are probably going to favour them. They've got a couple of very good spinners coming through. Zia Rahman is a very wily left-arm spinner with a lot of talent. They've also got another off-spinner, Shams Rahman, who's going to come in, and he's trying to replace the Mohammad Nabi type of player that we've seen do so well for Afghanistan in the past. So they've got a lot of talent in their side, probably a little bit less on the batting front. So with the bowling unit that we're going to roll out in this Test match, I think Afghanistan will struggle to compete.
OK, yes, so no Rashid Khan through injury. We believe that was a bit of a talking point when Afghanistan released their Test squad. How do you think they will fare against New Zealand, and how do you think Coach Gary Stead is feeling going into this? There's a lot of questions around his place and if he should still be coaching New Zealand. He's got 9 Test matches to prove that he should still be here in some capacity. So how important is it to start this, I guess, a subcontinent campaign with a bang?
Well, it's a tough place to go, isn't it? India, obviously this... Greater Noida is going to be a tough venue. It's actually it's going to swing there, so that'll bring our bowlers into the side of things. But there'll definitely be a crust. It's black soil, so the pitch will actually break up a little bit. There'll be plenty of reverse swing, and we know there'll be plenty of spin on offer. So not only the finger spinners that Mitch has alluded to, they've also got Zakir Khan as well. Obviously the left arm wrist spinner, so he'll create some challenges. But if the ball swings, then New Zealand's seam bowling or swing bowlers will certainly come into the game. So I see Tim Southee playing in this first match. If you look at Matt Adair, who was the man of the match against the Afghanistanis in the last Test match that they played, he's a similar type of bowler to Tim Southee. If the ball swings, I think Afghanistan will struggle. therefore, going back to your question, I think from a Gary Stead point of view, it's actually quite a nice place to start. Get this test match under your belt. I think, you've got to play 3 seamers, I think, in here, and play your all-round spinners. And then you can still have 6 bowling options and bat deep. So I think it's a nice start. And even though New Zealand won't have a warm-up game, without being disrespectful, I think New Zealand will be far too good for Afghanistan in this one-off test.
Oh, can we start talking about no warm-up games again? Could this become a theme for this New Zealand side? So in terms of the balance, we have a lot of great spinners going over there, and if it breaks up, like he said, what would your balance of the team look like, Mitch? Because we've obviously got Ajaz, who did so well last time we were in India. Who could forget that? 10 wickets, thanks for coming. Where does he fit? Does he fit? Santner, there's so many players that you could... What is your balance for your bowling squad look like?
Yeah, look, I'd like to see Ajaz play. I think he's going to play an important role, particularly when we go to Sri Lanka and to India. So he'd be first on the team sheet for me. You've still got Mitch Santner there now, who is also a batting option, and Glenn Phillips chimes in with that off spin as well. So you'll probably fit all of those guys in. Look, I know Tim Southee's the captain of this side, and you want to win this game against Afghanistan, but what I think it's going to end up doing is you're going to have Matt Henry and you're going to have Tim Southee, so you can probably only play one of Ben Sears and Will O'Rourke. And what I'd like to see is both of those 2 guys play, because I think we need to figure out who's going to be that third seamer in this test side going forward, particularly in these conditions. Sri Lanka will be pretty similar, and then when we come back to play India, you want to know who's going to be able to best suited to be that third seamer in that role. Is it going to be the out-and-out airspeed of Ben Sears? He needs to learn to bowl with the ball reverse swinging in these conditions, or is it going to be Will O'Rourke with that little bit of extra bounce and the skill that he possesses? So I'd like to see them playing the same side so we can see them side by side in this test match.
Off the back of Mitch's point there about the test captain, Gary Stead's been using some interesting language around the fact that he won't play all of the tests. Now, I've heard him do this about other players, and that sort of seemed to be the beginning of the end for those players. So what do you think the reality is of him playing? Obviously, he's not going to play all 9. Gary Stead said that he potentially won't. But who takes over the role as captaincy, and how sort of disruptive is that sort of chat from your coach as you go into such a huge test schedule?
Well, I think the writing was kind of on the wall, wasn't it? At the end of last year, there was talk about Tim Southee's place, which there hasn't been for a long time. So, and I guess as you get older, the test matches is the hardest, isn't it? Where you've got to back up spell after spell. And we've seen Tim in T20 cricket still be exceptional. But in Test cricket, it's the amount of overs he's bowled over the years is no doubt going to take its toll. So for me, you just play him when conditions suit. And I think that, where we think that there'll be swing on offer and we think that, there will be reverse swing, then Tim is probably one of those first guys on the team sheet. And I know Matt Henry was exceptional in New Zealand conditions, and he always will be when there's bounce and there's a little bit of seam on offer. But if there's not, he does get it to reverse a little bit, not really a swing bowler. Then I think his position will also come under threat at times, just purely due to conditions. Will O'Rourke is exciting, but I'm not so sure there's going to be a huge amount of bounce at Greater Noida, and I think he's that type of bounce bowler. So it's nice that New Zealand have got options. Airspeed, absolutely. Ben Sears, with that ability to get better at reverse, will be able to run through sides at the back end. So I think he's a guy that certainly deserves opportunities as well. So it is probably the beginning of the end for Tim in terms of that slide down the totem pole a little bit. But, he's still offering plenty at the moment. There's leadership, and as I said, where conditions suit, he will still play a big role.
All right, well, let's catch up with someone who's going to play a big role over in India. Mitch Santner heading off on what's going to be a huge diet of Test cricket for the Black Caps. How are you feeling? It's been a while since Test cricket has been around, especially in this Black Caps camp. How's it all been in the prep?
It's been good. I guess I've been away for most of it, but we had a good, couple of camps in the Mount and Lincoln, and I think the boys are ready to go, and nice to change it up from T20.
What are you most looking forward to with this test match? It's historic against Afghanistan. There's a lot going on. There's some great players coming through Afghanistan. There'll be no easy beats there, that's for sure. So what are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, I think it's that. It's an exciting time for Afghanistan cricket. They showed us in the T20 World Cup how good they are. So, it's going to be cool to, you want to play, as many teams as you can, and Afghanistan's one of them. And I guess, like you said, it's the start of, a lot of Test cricket, and with some championship points on the line as well.
A great opportunity for you as a spinner over in spin-friendly conditions. How much are you looking forward to that challenge?
Yeah, it's going to be good. we've got a good, spin quartet. I think we've got 5 options, which is nice. And, we've all been talking to each other. We've got to figure out what's most effective in those conditions. It could be different to, what we expect. So, it's about learning and, we've got 6 tests in a row and potentially spinning conditions. So it's exciting.
6 tests in a row. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot on the bod, especially as a bowler. If you're used a lot, given the conditions, how will you go as a unit, sort of navigating that? Has there been chat that not everyone will play every game? Is that why you've taken so many bowlers? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I guess for me, coming off 4 over spells it's going to be a little bit different to test cricket. But yeah, I think we have a lot of options, and it's nice to have 5 world-class spinners. So I guess whoever gets the nod on the day will do a job, but we'll all be talking collectively. As a unit, I think it's nice to. I guess we've got Harath for the first few tests, and I guess his knowledge in Sri Lanka is going to be pretty important. But yeah, it's nice to everyone is a slightly different bowler and do slightly different things. So it's as a whole, I think that's a good unit.
All right, so it's not just the New Zealand Test match that has everyone, well, the New Zealand Test series coming up, actually, that's got everyone talking here on Sky Sport. We also have the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and just the players' chat around this, the hype I've got as a cricket fan, I cannot wait. So I heard Nathan Lyon say that this is almost as big, if not bigger than the Ashes to them right now, how they're focusing on it, what sort of pressure they're putting on, because it's been 10, 12 years since they've won this. This means a lot to them. You're a cricket fan as well as a former cricket player. Mitch, how much are you looking forward to this, and who do you think is going to win?
I'm fizz up. Yeah, I think it's great. I think the record that India's had against Australia in recent times is exceptional. They've been able to knock them over more often than not. But look, I think it being a 5-match series is going to lend itself towards, going in the favour of Australia, particularly in their home conditions. I think they've got a quality side. Yes, they've got a few areas which they need to solidify. The conversation around where does Steve Smith bat? I know Aaron Finch has come out and said that he'd like to see him return to the number 4 spot, where he's been so prolific for such a long period of time, and move Travis Head to the top. I can understand what Finchie's saying around of that kind of stuff. He wants Steve Smith, who's their best batsman, in his familiar role. But I spent a bit of time with Steve Smith for a couple of weeks in India a few months back, and I was expecting him to be a little bit selfish as a player and the way he talked about the game, but he was completely the opposite, and he was a really good guy. I know. He's a really good guy. That'll hurt a few New Zealand cricket fans out there who would love to hate him, but the only bad thing I found about him was that he was a Sydney Roosters fan. And that's a big mark against him. But his attitude towards, asked him about this question, how was the opening going and all that kind of stuff, and he had a real New Zealand kind of mindset around it. It was about trying to find using his experience the best of the team's ability, and him going to the top and allowing Cameron Green and Travis Head to stay in their familiar positions in that middle order. He said, I'm happy to make that sacrifice for the team so they can perform and come into the side and perform straight away, which we saw against New Zealand. Cameron Green batted beautifully in that role. So, and Steve Smith's such a good player that if he gets a long run at that opening position, he's going to score runs there as well. So I would probably keep it status quo. Also because I think this Indian bowling lineup is exceptional. I really do. I don't think Travis Head sets up nicely for Bumrah at the top with the new ball, or Siraj or Shami. I think it'll be lights out, and he'll go into a form slump. So I'd keep Steve Smith at the top because he's got the experience to be able to combat that bowling unit.
Yeah, Travis Head's gone the blower to Finch. He's saying, can you please stop saying that? I do not want to face Bumrah. No, thank you. No, thanks, Hess. But it is a tantalising wee battle we have on our hands here with these two great teams. You think about what Australia did to India in that one-day World Cup. You know how much that hurt India. Then India doing so well in the T20 World Cup. Now it's a test game, and it's just so it's just so exciting here. So what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for both teams? We've talked a bit about Steve Smith there and where he should possibly sit in Australia's batting order, but do they have a weakness otherwise, that Australian side, and what's India's weakness in this?
Well, I think Bumrah is the key, to be fair. I think, the fact his ability to bowl throughout the innings at different times, swing the ball both ways with a new ball, so he will create challenges up the top. And I think if India can make inroads in the top order, the likes of Khawaja, Smith, Labuschagne, if they can get that middle order in early, then I think they've got an opportunity in this series. I do worry about India's spinners away from home. The likes of Nathan Lyon, I think his ability to get that overspin on the ball Sure, it's towards the back end of his career, but he's as good as there is ever in Australia, outside of Shane Warne. So, he is unbelievable. And India's spinners certainly aren't as good as he is in those conditions. And the rest of Australia's ageing bowling attack, outside of Mitchell Starc, who sort of comes and goes a little bit in form, are actually getting better. You look at Hazelwood, how good his last 12 months have been. You look at Cummins. There's no respite, from that Indian batting lineup. So I agree. I think Australia are slight favourites in Australia, but India's depth is incredible. And I think if Bumrah gets some form early, then I think we're in for a great series.
I mean, Bumrah, I just go back to that T20 final. That was some of the greatest bowling I think I've ever witnessed. It was truly something to behold. But India they're hot right now, for lack of a better term. Like they feel really hot and into it, and they love it. And what I'm most looking forward to is the fizz levels from the players, because already the chat around it is so big, and that creates a bit of off-field drama. Now, I'm thinking Ashes last time round. I mean, I'm not thinking a Johnny Bairstow-Lords incident, but, the players will be on the field. This just adds to the great drama that this Test series will bring, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Virat's going to be shy of a few words, so he'll be getting involved. Last time he was in Australia, he was very vocal, and the way he went about his work. He had a phenomenal series, and he seems to step up in those big occasions, and he's going to be as combative as ever. Expect him to have another good series, but around that, like you say, top quality players from top to bottom. We saw Dhruv Jurel, who is probably a name that a lot of New Zealanders don't associate with Indian cricket at the moment, but he's exceptional. He was great against England in their home conditions. It'll be interesting to see how he does go in Australian conditions. Can he produce the same form he's produced recently in the Test format? So, look, they've got talent coming out of every corner of that country and performing at the top level. And you're right, they're riding high. This will be I would say, yep, the T20 World Cup series, winning that was massive for Rohit. But I think this will be even bigger. If they can win a 5 Test match series with a full-strength Indian lineup in Australia, I think everyone's touting it as the new Ashes. I think it could create this amazing legacy for these Test series going forward.
And we have it all for you on Sky Sport. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I can't believe we have to wait till November for that. But that's okay. We can do it because there's plenty more cricket coming up for you, starting with the Black Caps taking on Afghanistan in a one-off Test match, which will, of course, will be on Sky Sport for you. Thank you guys so much for your thoughts today. Mike Hesson from Dunedin, Mitchell McClenaghan, your legends. And we will see you next time on No Boundaries.